Hey everybody, it's Jason Blaha here. Thought I would sit down and do a video for you guys and gals. Let me get a sip of my water first. Get my radio voice going and let's talk about this. All right, let's talk a little bit about ego lifting. This is something that the longer I train, the longer I coach, the older I get, the more I realize the value of good form. Even to the point where I've done a fair amount of controlled cheating on certain exercises, and I have been stepping back saying, I don't know that this is doing me any good. And this is an important conversation that we have to have. We have to have this conversation because we have a lot of young influencers who are telling people, oh, ego lifting is the way, and then you watch them train. It's a lot of cheating going on, a lot of partials going on. Even on machines, they're cheating, doing partials, all this stuff. Okay? This is not ideal for muscle growth. It's not ideal for safety. Now, I will be the first to say I have not always adhered to this philosophy. I am an older, wiser, more mature, well, slightly more mature version of myself. All right, I'm still going to tell dick and butt jokes. Deal with it. Still going to tell jokes about your mom, but I'm mature, more mature than I was. Your mom probably does watch these videos. By the way, one of my haters one time came in the comments and said, yeah, he kind of got upset by that. His mom came in the room and thought I was hot. I'm like, sorry, bro. Is what it is. But back over to the point, more mature now. And I've come to learn the value of better form. And when we really think about it, when you go back and you look at some of the greats who've been hurt, it's usually due to really sloppy cheating. Did it mean they didn't gain muscle? Of course they still gained muscle, because a muscle doesn't care where it gets its attention. At the end of the day, your bicep, right? Your bicep. Do you think it really cares if there's other muscles involved in helping it? Right? So a super strict curl versus a cheat curl, as long as the bicep is what fails, right? If the bicep fails while doing a cheat curl, you're still good. Okay? Of course it's going to grow. I mean, if other muscles involved stopped muscles from growing, then chin-ups wouldn't grow your biceps at all. But a lot of guys have built pretty nice biceps off chins. Not necessarily me, but a lot of guys have. Maybe I'm not the most genetically gifted in the biceps. I accept that. That's why I have to do these strict curls that I'm doing now. Have to. All right, but the point is, tension is tension, right? It is tension. But here's some points that I want people to think about. Number one, think in terms of recovery. Are doing these big cheat exercises the extra muscles that are getting involved? Unless they are getting trained appropriately, are you really getting that great of a growth stimulus? Now, yes, obviously your anterior deltoids are going to get worked on any sort of curl, and even more so on a cheat curl. That's obviously going to happen. A lot of people aren't aware of that, but especially if you have, flexion of the shoulder, of course. Same thing on a lot of your extensions for your triceps. There's going to be some posterior delta involved even on those, sure. And it may even grow because it may be getting trained through an effective range of motion. But would we really use any of these as primary exercises? Like, would you count cheat curls really towards your sets for your front delts or your upper traps? Would you really count them? I mean, even if I do cheat curls, I've done them with like 185 before, but I can shrug 315 all day long. Do you think my traps really getting stimulus from that? I don't think so. So therein lay the point. We're not really always gaining muscle in these other areas. In some exercises we are, but in some we aren't. I mean, even if we're doing a little bit of cheat rows, okay, maybe your posterior chain's getting a little work, maybe your rectors, but if you already do deadlifts with 500 pounds for work sets, right? If you can do 6, 8, 10 reps with 500 pounds on a deadlift already, and you do that sort of thing every week, do you really think a 275 or a 315 cheat row is doing anything? No, it's a waste of time there. And the stimulus to your lats, to your biceps, all that stuff is probably very similar. If they are what's causing muscle failure, if you take the sets to the end, they're probably getting the same growth as a strict one, right? But you're adding all this extra stress to your body that you then have to recover from. And what is it that I have often said? It's not the training, the stimulus that you do that you grow from. It's the stimulus that you recover from that you grow from. Okay? This is one reason we know, even data showing a lot of the best researchers will say, look, if you're coming in and you're not recovered session to session, you're not going to have maximum force output. You're not going to get to all the deep muscle fibers. You're probably not going to grow effectively. So if we're just digging into our recovery by doing all these cheat exercises, what's it costing us? It's costing us training volume we could be doing. It's costing us recovery we could be doing. It's probably, again, beating our body up for no gain. I am fine with subjecting my body to a lot of stress. I think most of us are. Again, you guys see me rep out 500 pounds on the deadlift at age 47. I do work sets with that. I'm cool with subjecting my body to some stress, but not if I'm not getting anything out of it. So you have that to consider, right? Have that to consider. You're just doing a bunch of crap that you're not recovering from, potentially. That's one. Number two, then we get into the injury side. When experts, and I don't mean the layman, I don't mean goofballs who don't know what they're talking about. I'm not talking about armchair critics who've been working out 3 years. I'm talking really serious coaches. What do they say crippled Ronnie Coleman did? What do a lot of the real serious people say? It wasn't those deadlifts. Those deadlifts were actually pretty. You guys want to know what probably really beat his back up? Those cheat rows. Now, did he build a massive back? Hell yeah, he did. But the guy was doing cheat rows with like 600 pounds. And if you ever saw any of the footage, they were ugly. Injuries. And I mean, he's an extreme example. Very extreme example. I hate to use Ronnie because, oh man, what do people say? That anytime you use Ronnie Coleman as an example for anything related to bodybuilding, you lose the argument by default because he's such a genetic freak. All right, fine, but we do know this is probably what causes injuries. It wasn't because he was lifting heavy, it's because he was cheating like crazy on big exercises that load the back. Granted, cheating with weight that none of us will ever lift, right? It's just ludicrous amounts of weight. But then you step back and go, wouldn't he have had just as good of a back if he had done them stricter with less weight? Like, let's say he went all the way down to 315 or some little light, childish weight and did stricter rows to failure. He would have still had the biggest back in his era. He still would have had it, right? Because he would have taken them to failure. It's Ronnie Coleman. But we see these injuries. We see these injuries. Again, accumulated overuse and bad form are what create injuries. And if we're just cheating on everything, we're subjecting ourselves to a higher risk of injuries. And again, I will state, I am guilty of this at times. Not trying to be hypocritical. It is something I am actively working on improving with all my training. And we're seeing me do that in my vlogs. So that's kind of my point when it comes to this philosophy. And again, there can be a place for controlled cheating. But straight up ego lifting, particularly if we're losing ranges of motion, all this nonsense, no. It's just a recipe for injury. And the guys who are getting the results doing it, well, they're probably on enough stuff that they would get results doing anything. As long as they train hard, they're going to be massive. And it is as simple as that for those individuals. It really is. All right, guys, but that's really all I have to say on that today. I hope it's been informative. I and I'll talk to you guys and gals next time.